Day 5, or January the 5th. All to Jesus I surrender. All to him I freely give. Our thought today is rooted in Genesis chapter 14, verse 20. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. First, the big picture surrounding this verse. Abram finally settles in the promised land with his wife Sarai and their nephew Lot. It quickly becomes obvious that the land will not be big enough for both Abram and Lot, so it is divided between these two potential nations. This confirms why God told Abram to leave his relatives behind before entering the promised land. But being a doting uncle, he thought he was doing the best by looking after his nephew Lot. The land was a gift from God. But when it is divided, Lot greedily takes the best portion and leaves the part he doesn't fancy for his uncle Abram. Abram is grateful to God for the rest of his life and is the first person in the Bible to give a regular part of his income back to God. It is called a tithe or a tenth. Meanwhile, Lot slips away and ultimately finishes up with nothing of real value. But Abram gets all that God has promised, and he thrives in the promised land. And our action step for today. I think one of the most misused criticisms of the church today is seeing it as always asking for money. When tithing or the giving of a tenth is brought up, many believers react by saying that they are New Testament believers, not Old Testament ones. It's true that the concept of tithing is an Old Testament one, but in the New Testament it is superseded in the early church, where Acts chapter 4 verse 32 reminds us, all the believers were united in heart and mind, and they felt that what they owned was not their own, so they shared everything they had. This news usually makes tithing a very attractive option. However, Abram's tithe was a tenth of everything, not just money. I believe tithing is a minimum, but let's not limit it to money. What about time? What about our talents? Need I go on? Remember, God allows us to retain 90% of our wealth, but even then, we need to use it wisely as a good steward.